I think if I was a Gooner now, I would be annoyed and a little bit frustrated that the game is still alive, and it is still alive.
Yeah.
We have to be results-based driven because we have objectives that we have to hit.
Yeah.
It's critical that we qualify for Champions League. It's critical that we try and win a trophy and keep that winning mentality and that taste for it in this young squad.
Of course I want to win trophies. You know, there is nothing better than finishing the season showing off what you'd won. But for me, where the club is right now, absolutely 100% Champions League football is far more important. It does feel a little bit as if there is a figure of fun they're trying to build up in the press.
It's difficult for me to comment because I'm almost becoming him, aren't I?
Unfortunately, the club may well have to be forced to sell him in the summer.
But does this not tell you everything we need to know? That why are we sat here having this conversation thinking about we should be keeping Reese James? It shouldn't even be a conversation.
They've been told that this is the profile of player we want to sign. Go and get the best 19, 20-year-old players that you can find in this position.
If they can't do what they said they would do at the start when they came in, which is take Chelsea back to the top, and almost eclipse Roman they were talking about from a commercial standpoint and a sporting standpoint, if they can't do that, then they've failed.
Hello and welcome to Inside Chelsea, the show for Chelsea fans by Chelsea fans. I'm Olivia Buzaglo and I'm joined by former Chelsea defender Jason Cundy and broadcaster and lifelong Chelsea fan Matisse. Guys, I mean, it's pleasantly surprising.
A win.
Yeah, a win. We'll take it.
A win is a win because Chelsea 2, Brentford 0 perhaps doesn't tell the full story on how the game went, Jace. You were on comms for the game.
Yeah.
But at this point, are we just taking the win as a win and moving on?
I think so. I think the result was going to be far more important than the performance. However, you can't ignore the performance. And I felt Brentford, on another day, come away with at least a point, maybe more. They caused us a lot of problems, in particular the second half. And once we got the second, it broke their spirit, broke their hearts. And I heard Keith Andrews afterwards talking about how he felt there was something in the game for them, and he'd have been right. Because I was fearful once they get the first Brentford, and I felt there was going to be plenty of chances for that to happen, because they did. Sanchez pulled off one or two really good saves, especially one with the legs. But they never got the first goal, and that, when we went 2 up, it crushed them, really.
Yeah, I mean, Matisse, when you were watching that game, I've seen a lot of Chelsea fans complaining, as they like to do, that the performance, like Jay says, wasn't great.
Yeah.
Do you mind as much?
Not now, because I think with the new manager coming in, I mean, it's almost like he's got to get used to the new players that he's got at his disposal. So he has to assess their strengths, their weaknesses, the systems, how they can play in certain ways. He figured out quite fast that maybe we couldn't play out from the back against Arsenal with Fofana in the middle of the back three and Sanchez with the short passing. He's gone long, and that's why maybe Maresco was allowing him to be more versatile and go longer. So these are all things that he's going to have to figure out that maybe we already know watching this team the whole season. But I feel like with this situation, it is results first, because we are in a position in the league where we can't afford to drop any more points. We've got favourable fixtures coming up before they get really difficult again. And I do believe that the players are still the same, and the limitations are still there in terms of what we have. Like, we have the same players that we need to manage fitness-wise, the same kind of profile of wingers, and these aren't going to just magically make different results or different types of gameplay because the new manager's in charge. It's still going to be things that he has to kind of try and solve.
Yeah, well, we'll get onto the Arsenal game in a second because we haven't actually done a show after the League Cup game, but that's one game that Robert Sanchez will probably want to forget.
Yeah.
However, the game against Brentford, you mentioned him earlier, Jace, he pulled off a couple of really big and important saves at some vital times.
Yeah,
as well.
1-0 was that save. I think it was Jensen that went through.
Yeah.
Reese is closing him down and kind of rushed his shot, probably, but Sanchez has come out. Look, Sanchez is a shot stopper. He's
brilliant.
I have no worries about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes his decision-making and when the ball's at his feet. And I think what it felt to me as if Senior has said to him, right, look, you take responsibility for where the ball is on the pitch, and you take responsibility if you can play it for the back. Because you can't play at the back every time.
No.
Especially the way they were set up, Brentford. They were setting traps. And then we went long. He's got a great foot in him.
He also lands on someone's foot half the time, doesn't it? Yeah.
His range of passing when he goes long, Sanchez. We saw that in the Club World Cup. It was excellent. Putting the ball over to Pedro Neto in that first time. I think Garnacho benefited a couple of times as well. And what that will do, that will get them second guessing that we're not going to go short every time, and therefore will change how they set themselves up. But I thought he was very much part of how we went on to go and win that game.
Yeah, I mean, and actually this season, Matisse, performances like the one against Arsenal have been few and far between this season, and actually that shows how far he's come as a goalkeeper.
Absolutely. There was some lazy analysis after the Arsenal game, like Chelsea had had Sanchez cost them all season and, you know, he's a massive weak point in this team. He's proven a lot of people wrong, or at least he's, you know, calmed the doubters down, including myself, because this season he's been impeccable. He's been one of the players that have almost carried us to more points than we could have had at some points in some matches, and he saved us in this game as well. Like you said, 2 world-class saves on the 1v1, saving with his feet. And he's been coming out and collecting crosses as well, which I think is a massive step forward, because before maybe he was just punching them. Now he comes and collects them, and I think that's a big thing for us. So, yeah, he's been one of our best players this season, for sure.
So it's 3 games for Liam. We can't really read too much into 3 games, especially because one of them came against Charlton in the FA Cup. But 2 wins out of 3, and the defeat coming against Arsenal in the League Cup. He'd take that, wouldn't he, Jace?
I mean, the defeat against Arsenal is damaging because, you know, we've got to go there now and we've got to go and win. And that's one of the trickiest places in Europe to go and win. It's all about that first goal. We'll talk about that in a second. I think when you look at the amount of goals scored, OK, Charlton, you know, you got 7, you got 8, you got 9 goals in 3 games, but the Charlton was a bit of an anomaly. I think what he needs to now is build on that again and keep going.
Yeah.
Because results, performances and victory, especially at this stage of the season, they're so different. You'd rather, you and I talk in the green room, right now, the results are so important.
I genuinely don't care about performance. I genuinely don't care. Like,
unless there's a worrying trend that we find we get away with a little bit. I don't want to play like that against Brentford every week. There needs to be progression, but the result is of paramount importance.
But also, Brentford are a bogey team. We have to remember, right?
Yeah.
We've won 1 in 8 against Brentford. Like, home, away, they've caused us problems everywhere they go. For whatever reason, no matter who their manager is, no matter who their players are, they've got our number.
It's true.
They're a good side. They were ahead of us before the game. You know, they were actually ahead of us before the game. Keith Andrews...
Not anymore.
Yeah, thankfully. Keith Andrews done a brilliant job. I feel like right now we have to be results-based driven, because we have objectives that we have to hit. Yeah. It's critical that we qualify for Champions League. It's critical that we try and win a trophy and keep that winning mentality and that taste for it in this young squad. And I think when you change manager mid-season, and whatever principles he wants to put down and whatever philosophies he wants to, kind of place upon the team, that has to come second to results. He can't go in there and rip it all up and say, this is how we play, and be real stubborn about it, because you only have what you have to use and you have to get the best out of it.
So, critical we win a trophy, critical we get top 4.
Yeah.
Which one would you prefer?
Trophy for me.
Is it? So Quaku was sat here last week saying the exact same thing, whereas me and Jace were like, I think it's absolutely vital that we get top 4 over anything. Why do you say that you'd rather win, let's say a League Cup, why would you rather win a League Cup?
The 2 things for me. I think the trophies are critical for the fan base and for the team in terms of manager and players. I think Chelsea are, before that Club World Cup win, they're dangerously going into a territory where they haven't won a trophy in a few years, and that winning mentality and that taste for it and that understanding of it is seeping out of a young team that need to have that kind of implemented into them. We don't have, outside of Reese James and Chalobah, who've obviously won Champions League and been there around the other players that accomplished that, a lot of this team haven't won enough or won much or anything. So to get that ingrained into their system, that this is a winning club that needs to be picking up trophies is paramount. And I also believe Chelsea don't take advantage of the Champions League qualification in the recruitment. You look at last summer, the players that we signed, we could have signed with Europa League football, Conference League football, no European football. I remember when Chelsea signed N'Golo Kante without European football, but now, so I just don't feel like we are, unless we're going to win the Champions League, which to do that, you're going to have to sign a much higher quality of player than we are signing. I don't believe we take advantage of it, so it doesn't mean as much to me as a trophy anymore.
My concern is that winning the Carabao Cup 3 years out of 4 ain't going to keep Cole Palmer. No. Ain't going to keep Esteban.
No.
That simply isn't true. And for me, there has to be a push for Champions League football. It's the elite competition. And we have proven before, when the odds are against us, the chips down, we can go and do something.
Yeah.
Of course I want to win trophies. There is nothing better than finishing a season showing off what you'd won. But for me, where the club is right now, absolutely 100% Champions League football is far more important than winning the Carabao Cup.
Do you see where Jason's coming from, that long term, if we want to keep hold of the likes of those 2 players, Cole Palmer and Esteban, we're not going to be doing that playing in the Europa League?
I agree with that, but I also believe that these players will leave regardless of Champions League qualification if we don't start signing players that are going to actually push them, elevate the team so they can push for a Premier League title and really push for a Champions League title and not have to fluke it. So I believe that these players you know, they would be restless regardless. And the only thing that the fans have to gravitate towards and actually keep them going is a trophy at Wembley, which our record has been incredibly poor recently. And I could definitely do.
Remember the last time we won a game at Wembley?
Yeah, I could definitely do with a Wembley day out and a trophy, and just to take the sting out of it. So I agree with your point, though. We need Champions League football for the revenue and all these things, but they have to start taking advantage of it. Otherwise, it's just participation at the end of the day.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to do both. Maybe we'll have to just get top 4 and win a trophy. Obviously, the League Cup semi-final against Arsenal. I touched on it a little bit. I went to bed at 2-0. Was thinking that I was going to wake up and it'd be 5-0. I woke up and it was 3-2. Now, you two are probably better equipped because you probably watched the game. I didn't watch the full game, so I don't think I can give sort of too much of an opinion. But I thought a big day for Alejandro Garnacho, would you say, Jace?
Yes, come off the bench. Sometimes you can be a lucky manager as well as a good one. And I think there was a slightly bit of good fortune, the fact that Garnacho came on and actually made things happen. We got away with it a little bit. I feel uncomfortable saying this, but I'll take 3-2 with the way the game went. They were so much better than us, and they should have put the tie to bed. I think if I was a Gooner now, I would be annoyed and a little bit frustrated that the game is still alive, and it is still alive.
Yeah.
And they would love to have got that third and fourth goal, which it felt was coming a bit earlier, and then maybe look ahead to what's coming in the Premier League. They're going to have to play a strong team, and they've got strong players throughout the squad.
Yeah.
This is going to be a mountain for us to climb. However, it's about the first goal.
Yeah.
If they get it, it's probably over. If we get it, game on. And it's quite simple as that for me. We're not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. A refereeing decision, a back pass, and goalkeeping error, anything can change the game.
Well, yeah, you look at, what happened in the first leg. We really gifted Arsenal 2 of those goals.
Yeah.
On the other hand, at 3-1, that save from Robert Sanchez from Mikel Merino does keep Chelsea in the tie. Yeah. And then Garnacho goes and gets a second, which means we are fully back in the tie. Yeah. But it's just a little bit just frustrating because we, as strong as Arsenal were, that was their full-strength team pretty much, bar Raya in goal.
No Caicedo, no Cole.
Exactly. We've got 3 best players out and they're playing their strongest team at Stamford Bridge. So I didn't really expect much less. But just a little bit frustrating because you don't need to gift a team that's that good a couple of goals.
You kill the game 7 minutes in when you concede from a set piece and the whole stadium goes flat. We know how they are on set pieces. I would have liked us to go back to our old routine of maybe taking numbers out of the box and leaving more people forward.
Why have we stopped doing that?
I don't know. I really don't understand it because it did work and Sanchez had more breathing room to come and see what was around him and collect. I'd probably be more harsh on us in terms of the result because I do feel that even though we had players missing, Cole Palmer's not in form right now. He can be our best player or our best attacker. He's not in form. He's not maybe even fit. So I don't feel like that's as big as a miss as it used to be.
Reese and
the pivot is massive. Yeah. That's the big thing for me. But even then, you still look at the quality. 4 out of the back 5 is the usual defenders. We could have easily at least got a draw there. I feel like Esteval was definitely pushing, always looking threatening. Garnacho was the only sub this manager could have made on half-time or, in the second half because Guy was... he's just not equipped to play against those level of centre-backs. It's the biggest mismatch you're going to see of the season. I felt for him. You can't put him up against Gabriel and Saliba and think he's going to make anything out of that. So, yeah, it was I feel like that's... We're hanging on, but we're not in a good position at all going to the Emirates with that result.
It's going to be tough. We know that.
Yeah. But like you say, first goal changed everything.
First goal is absolutely crucial, whoever gets that,
I feel like there's so little to talk about on the pitch, but there's so much to talk about off it. Let's start with Liam Rosenior then. Obviously came out and said in his post-match press conference about the Lego and building Lego for team building and the clapping thing as well. And do you think people are taking the mick a little bit now, Jason? What are your thoughts on the way that the press are sort of handling him and the questions he has? And
it does feel a little bit as if there is a figure of fun they're trying to build up in the press. He speaks a lot.
I think he's quite an intelligent man.
Well,
I think people don't like that.
No,
we've got Liam in the building. We could ask him.
Exactly. Well, he does have a look with the glasses, and he has got a certain demeanour about him that comes across as very educated. Seems a very deep thinker. There is a slight concern from my point of view that there is going to be this kind of figure of fun that they're mocking him a little bit about it's all about results, Liv.
Yeah.
If you get results, and
them up.
you know, it reminds me a little bit of what we saw with Arteta when they were doing the Netflix documentary, you know, with having the speakers around the training ground before they went to Anfield. You know?
That was that was really bad though, because they then got beat 4-0.
Right.
You can't play You'll Never Walk Alone at the Arsenal training ground and then get beat 4-0 by Liverpool. You can't do that.
But I remember that, right?
Yeah.
And that Arteta was coming in for a little bit of that. People were looking at him. The reason they don't talk about it anymore, because they're top of the table, they're probably going to win the Premier League.
Yeah.
And it's all about results. That will quieten people down. That will shut people down. There's a lot of people that I listen to here at talkSPORT that think that there's no way he deserves to be in this position. There is, you know, he's almost like won a competition, which is incredibly harsh because he has done whatever you think. He's not the managers we used to have in the Joses, the Ancelottis, the Contes. That level of manager is not what we're looking for right now. But he has gone out and done his stripes. He's gone over to Strasbourg, from what we know very well, the youngest squad in top 5 divisions ever.
Yeah.
He's dealt with that for 7th last season. And I just feel he needs, from my point of view, he needs to be back. We spoke about this last week. He gets my 100% backing, and I wish him all the best. But there is a lot of outside noise.
Yeah.
Matisse, obviously, Jay said there's a lot of people that think he maybe isn't deserving of being in the job. Are you one of those?
Well, he's no less experienced than Maresca was when he got the job. But
And how did you feel about Maresca coming in? Did you feel like he wasn't deserving of the job?
I think a lot of the players we sign and the managers we appoint are developing potential talents, but they're not ready to be at Chelsea for what the aspirations I have or a lot of the fans have, which is to win Premier Leagues, win Champions Leagues. So it's a double-edged sword because you, as a Chelsea fan, naturally are going to back and defend and want the best for your managers and your players, whilst also knowing that they're probably above their station slightly and that the path and to this position has been fast-tracked a lot quicker than it maybe should have been. So I feel for him because he is kind of, they are taking the mick a little bit with his kind of persona and his character. But at the same time, like you said, results change that. And that's the only thing that's going to change that. If you don't get results, then that's going to carry on.
Yeah, it feels like he needs a big result. The result against Brentford doesn't kind of class as that. No. The one against Charlton doesn't class. It feels like he needs a bit of a statement win.
We haven't really got... I mean, think of the fixtures we've got coming up. Paphos. Yeah. What would be a statement win is Napoli away next week.
Yeah.
That would be up against Antonio Conte.
Yeah. I mean, there are a few coming up between now and the end of February. The Palace away, that's, it's probably a good time to play them right now. But I think he does need that win where you go, wow, okay, that's what we want to see. We want to see more of that. And the two that spring to mind are going to be Napoli away and Arsenal away. They're the two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Do you think he's becoming a bit of a laughing stock, Matisse? And
it's difficult for me to comment because I'm almost becoming him, aren't I? Media. I'm enjoying myself. So, listen, for him, I think the key is that, I mean, he's showing his charisma in the press conference, which is nice. They talk about the Lego building and the clapping and then the training and all these things. And as long as he kind of deals with the media the right way, which I think he will, he kind of first press conference shook everybody's hand. He's kind of trying to... People on the flip side were like, he doesn't need to do that. Yeah, well... He doesn't need to come in and shake everyone's got their tactics, isn't it? Yeah, you can't win, it's true. Everyone's got their tactics on how to deal with the media, but the fact that he's from here, he knows exactly what they're like. He should be able to kind of keep them, keep them cool and in their place. But let's see. I mean, like you said, results, because the questions are only going to get tougher if you're not getting results. If you get the results, the questions are a lot calmer and they can't really say too much to you. I quite like the way he's dealing with the media at the moment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago. People were talking about how poorly Graham Potter dealt with the media.
Yeah.
And now we've got someone that actually is engaging, he gives good copy, maybe a little bit too much info at times, potentially, but I think he'll probably learn. But I think so far, I don't have a problem with it at all.
No, I quite like it. I don't...
He's a bit ballsy, he's there.
I think compared to Graham... I think that's a great comparison, actually, Jace, the Graham Potter. I mean, Maresca sometimes gave a little bit, and I don't know, sometimes he was a little bit like, just chill. But I think him and Graham Potter are two sort of separate ends of the...
And we were all talking about how part of the job that Potter really never got to grips with at a club the size of Chelsea was dealing with those difficult questions, was dealing with those moments in front of the camera. Yeah. And at the moment, I think he enjoys it, Rosenior. He feels like he's really enjoying that part. But like I said, there will be moments where perhaps sometimes saying too little is better than saying too much. Yeah. I wonder, he'll get the balance right, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. So obviously Liam's third game, 3 games in charge, 2 wins, 1 defeat. Isn't too bad. Like we say, a lot going on off the pitch at Chelsea, as there always is. It's always chaos. It's never a dull day. obviously, Bedad Eghbali is co-owner, someone that's making the decision to let Maresca go, to bring Liam in. And Simon Jordan actually said on talkSPORT, when I see someone that's really, really good, and it's very rare because I see a world of blaggers and people that BS all the time, and people that will have you believe they can do things they can't. I think Eghbali is one of the most capable individuals I've ever come across, both commercially and in his vision for Chelsea and his understanding of what's required to own a massive football club. Matisse, what do you?
This comment irks me to the greatest degree. First of all, commercially, Chelsea don't have a front of shirt sponsor. Chelsea struggle from a business perspective to do the very basic thing that every club across the top 4 divisions has done, which is have a front of shirt sponsor, which is very lucrative and brings in a lot of money to balance your books and make your revenue a lot stronger. And we have had a very dicey kind of relationship with European football in the last few years in terms of not being in any form of it, and then in the Conference League and now in the Champions League, and still not knowing what form of European football will be in next season, which obviously impacts and influences the deals. But when you're world champions in the summer, you think that you're from a strong negotiating standpoint, you're going to be able to get a deal done, and you don't. That doesn't look good on the ownership or the people that are in charge of the business runners of the club. Sleeve sponsor was only just really, sorted a few months ago. And then in regards to the recruitment and the money spent, I couldn't disagree more with this point, because Chelsea mandatory were to spend $1 billion after Roman sold the club. That was within the deal. They've spent that in record time, and now they're facing UEFA restrictions, buy-to-sell situations, caught up in PSR, caught up in so many different things that are influencing the way that they recruit and what players they target and what players they don't. And until that really leads to success, I don't think Simon can really sit there and say it will. And maybe he's not speaking from a success standpoint, he's speaking from a business model standpoint. But like I said, from a business standpoint, we're not flourishing and we're not at our max potential. We don't have a sponsor.
He was saying, when he said that, he was saying about not just from a business point of view, but actually Chelsea being successful. That was his point. And I can't quite understand where he's got this idea from. What has he watched these owners do in the space of 3 or 4 years since they've come in that's made Simon Jordan think, apart from the fact he's met him a couple of times, that makes him think that this is going to work?
They're big, bold statements from Simon, and Simon does like a big, bold statement. Look, the proof will be in the pudding whenever we see, in the next 2 to 3 years, the problem we've got with the situation that we find ourselves in, Chelsea fans, I've said this for a while now, we are probably not going to know really, genuinely, how the owners really view the club and how successful this is going to be for 2 to 3 years probably from this point now still. Because these young players that we're buying in now, we've seen Noni move on, we've seen Jackson move on, they've made money on those players,
I'd bring Jackson back, by the way, if anyone's watching.
Well, Liam might have something to do with that, who knows, but we won't really know what the model truly looks like. We can all have a guess, we can all think we know. They say they're looking to flip these players. We will know if eventually we do sell Palmer, Reese, Esteval, Casado, our best players. If they do move for profit, unless the player's forcing a move, of course, then I think we'll probably find out about where this vision is going. But right now...
Where do you think it is right now, then?
I don't know, Liv. Honestly, because the fact they're buying such young players indicates to a lot of people they're looking to get these young players, get the potential, improve that, get the potential and move them on. Well, there could also be a train of thought saying, well, get these young players growing, learning together, and in 2 to 3 years' time, when they are all of an age, when they are maturing, Cole Palmer is then going to be a seasoned pro, Casado, all these players, that they will have now hundreds of more games under their belt. And if that group of players can stay together and grow together, potentially in 3 to 4 years' time, some of these young guys will be 27, in their peak of their powers. And hopefully they all stay together. I don't know, Liv.
I'm not sure I can see this group of players staying together.
I think there has to be a time limit on when they took over to if we win that major, and we have to actually try and justify if that's the amount of time it should have taken to do that in the first place. Because they didn't pick Chelsea up in some... in the Championship. This is not Portsmouth, this is not Bolton Wanderers, this is Chelsea Football Club. So the starting point is not the same as what other clubs are. So you don't get the luxury of just taking, your sweet time with it, in my opinion, and then claim it as a success. Chelsea have got a core of players that are quality, but Chelsea are not adding to that quality for multiple windows, back to back to back now, and that is why the level of the squad has remained the same over the last couple of years. We haven't been able to make that next jump to go and compete for majors because of the quality of the players that are coming over the last few windows have not been a significant upgrade on the players that have left. They sold a record amount of players in the summer. They then brought in quite a few players, and the differential between the quality in Jackson versus Delap, João Pedro versus Christopher Nkunku, etc., from a technical perspective, is not the gap is not big enough. So if you've got that core of players and they consistently keep you in a top 4 kind of zone, but you don't add the quality that is necessary because of whatever restrictions from a wage perspective, transfer fee perspective, even pulling power perspective, to the point where Mark Gurhey's and Semenyo's will reject you openly and publicly almost, that they won't join your club. We're not talking about world-class players here. We're not talking about Vinicius Juniors and Mbappe's rejecting you. We're talking about Mark Gurhey's and Semenyo's. If that's the cap that you've now created for yourselves, you're not going to kick on. You're just going to continue to keep kind of sitting in... Yeah, you're going to continue to keep sitting in that kind of top 4, top 5 zone. You might pick up the odd cup here and there, but that's not, in my opinion, a definition of success for this ownership. If they can't do what they said they would do at the start when they came in, which is take Chelsea back to the top and almost eclipse Roman, they were talking about from a commercial standpoint and a sporting standpoint. If they can't do that, then they've failed.
What is becoming more and more obvious every window now, we've gone back for the days of Koulibaly, Aubameyang and Sterling, buying ready-made, off-the-shelf players, seasoned pros, experience. We have moved away from that completely, and there is no evidence to suggest that we are going to go into the market for experienced, seasoned, someone you're buying that's ready-made, 27, 28, that knows the Premier League, that has won major honours. That player does not look like he's ever going to join Chelsea at the moment. And that I would love to see. And I've said this, John Terry in his pomp, Frank Lampard in his pomp, Didier Drogba in his pomp. You put those 3 players into this team now, wow. Yeah. And I don't think we're a million miles away. Genuinely
I feel like that's by design, because that stops revolt, that stops people from really criticising them heavily, because we're not that far away, but they never actually finish off the job.
Do the
exactly.
The things that
so
will
they'll just keep
us.
you in limbo and keep you almost dangling the carrot. Chelsea are currently looking at centre-backs that are 20-year-old. They've signed left wingers that are 20 and 21 years old. They're not creating an environment for these guys to develop and really kick on, as we saw with the last batch, because we don't have enough experience, leadership, top-level world-class players in the squad to kind of hold their hand in a defensive centre-back partnership, take them and guide them through games in terms of an Olivier Giroud to a Tammy Abraham comparison in the striker line. It's kids going up against kids for vying for the same positions in most departments or key areas, and then they're selling them in 2-3 years, and then they're bringing in... but they're bringing in another player to replace them that will be 2021. And then we're hearing in 2-3 years Chelsea will be ready to go again. The point I'm making. They're resetting the clock.
If that happens, they do move them on every 2 or 3 years. We are never going to get to that point that I'm talking about. I want to see Levi Colwill, when he's 27, 28 in an England shirt, play multiple games for England. I want to see Reese James continue doing what then you have got experience.
If you was Reese James, would you sign a new contract now? His contract runs out in 2 years.
18 months.
18 months.
He's got 18 months. Well, if he does that, watch this space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
That's a big one.
I think he's...
I don't know if I would have asked Reece James.
Well, he will be one of, if not the highest paid player other than Raheem Sterling at the club.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do something about that. Now, going back to the point I was making about where does this club... We need to keep Reece James. Let me tell you now, we absolutely... need to keep... Somehow we've got to come, sit down around the table, get Reece to sign a new contract.
But does this not tell you everything we need to know? That why are we sat here having this conversation thinking about we should be keeping Reece James? It shouldn't even be a conversation.
No, but you've seen what Trent did at Liverpool. There
That's different, though, I think.
Well, if he gets to 18 months, right, on his contract, and it gets to a year, you can't allow him getting to his last year.
No.
Because then he will potentially walk for nothing. We've just seen Mark Gurhey leave for a song. He's worth 3 times what Manchester City paid for him, right? We cannot afford... And one of the things I understand from the new owners when they came in were absolutely astonished, in a bad way, that we allowed Rudiger and Andreas Christensen, both 2 centre-halves, worth well over £100 million between the pair of them, walk on a free. And they could not get their head around the fact that the previous regime allowed that to happen. So I'll be stunned and amazed if they they allow Reece to have so much power without signing a new contract.
Well, we've got to get this done in the next couple of months, because he's got a year in the summer.
Exactly, and that, Reece James right now should be looking at the managerial upheaval, the lack of consistency in terms of that situation from there, and then also the recruitment. And I'm not trying to draw these players out, but if I'm Reese James and I'm seeing Liam Delap come through the door, Jamie Gittins, Garnacho, and now linked to Jacquet, a 20-year-old centre-back with less than 40 appearances at the top flight level, and I'm seeing centre-backs make mistakes constantly in that pairing next to me as I'm playing right back, moving into midfield, a midfield he shouldn't really have to step into after spending 250 million. Lavia's never fit. That balance should already be there. I'm looking at that chaos in defence, midfield and attack in all departments across, and then the management, and I'm thinking I've got a very short career and I'm a Premier League level winning player and Champions League multi-Champions League winning level player. I'm definitely not signing any contract until I see a different level of recruitment come through that door. And if there's not any accountability for these directors that have spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds, made countless mistakes, then I wouldn't be signing that new deal, love for Chelsea or not, because the career is far too short.
And that is what it is. That's a fear. That's a big concern because you want, and you're right. Your career is not long in football, and players do want to see where am I going. If I sign the next 3-4 years, what does that landscape look like for me individually, and what does it look like collectively? And if Reece decides that actually this model, this project is not quite for me now, I've been part of it, and he decides to leave. Unfortunately, the club may well have to be forced to sell him in the summer. And I don't want to scaremonger about that.
That is wild.
No, because, like I said, they will not, from my understanding is, they will not, it won't happen again, what Trent did done to Liverpool and what Rudiger did to Chelsea, you're talking 60, what would he get for a year? I mean, God knows what he would get left on his contract with a year.
60,
but, they're not going to allow that money to leave on a front.
The way that they would want to move is from a business standpoint. They won't let that happen. But the snowball effect that would have on Cole Palmer, Caicedo and any other key player, seeing Reece James walk out that door would be catastrophic.
Oh, my word.
It's a frightening thought, yeah.
But yeah, it is a frightening thought. And actually, can we move on? Because I don't really want to have to think about it, to be honest. You mentioned, Matisse, about, the spending hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
I think our bench against Arsenal was a very good example of that. And I know there was no Palmer, there was no Reece and there was Caicedo. So those three go straight into the starting 11, which means a few starting players would drop down to the bench. But Jorgensen, Badiashile, Tosin, Hato, Asugo, Buonanotte, Garnacho, Meheka? I don't know.
Yeah, Meheka, from,
and Tyreek George.
Academy. Yeah.
Just looking at those names, is that acceptable?
That bench is nowhere near strong enough, and I looked at Arsenal's bench.
Oh, my gosh. I can read...
Their bench was frightening, the players they had on there.
Their bench was Raya, Lewis Skelly, Marino, Eze, Norgard, Madueke, Martinelli, Jesus and Kai Havertz.
Yeah, there's the difference. But this squad that Arsenal have got together now, Liv, has been built for years.
Yeah, 7 years, yeah.
This is not just something that's happened over the last 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
This has been built for under Arteta. This is his squad, and they built that. It takes time to get it right. That's why they're going to win the Premier League, because that squad is designed and built right now for it.
Yeah.
I think I'll have to leave the country.
Whilst looking at our squad and what I think would be probably our weaknesses or what we're lacking, I don't quite understand Jeremy Jacquet coming in for what is to be probably, 65 million euros, when we've just seen Sarr have a really strong performance in the AFCON final for Senegal.
Yep.
We've already signed him. He's 20 years old. And he's at Strasbourg currently, but he'll be at Chelsea in pre-season. We've signed... sorry, just take a cut there probably. Who's the Argentine centre-back that we signed? Anselmino, that's it, yeah. I was going to get the pronunciation wrong. And then we've also signed Anselmino as well from River Plate, I believe, or Boca Juniors, and he's coming now at Dortmund. He's on loan and he's doing his thing. I know he's had injury issues, but we've got Achimpong, 19 years old, talented centre. We've got a lot of right-footed, young, 2019 kind of centre-backs that have got potential. To then add another person in the mix, it just feels like stockpiling, which has happened in other positions prior, and it doesn't... Look, he could be ready-made. He could come in and maybe be Saliba, and that's the level that he'd have to be to really, kick Chelsea on immediately and be worth it. If not, it feels like we're doing what we already have done, and what we already have, we're not really maximising.
Wasn't this part of the problem back in pre-season when Levo Colwell went injured? And Maresca said apparently wanted a centre-half. The reason I heard they didn't want to bring a centre-half in because it might have stunted the development of Josh Achimpong. And I get that, I see that. Yeah. But then this...
Then he hasn't played him.
Well, that unfortunately, Josh's his minutes have been restricted, and I have no idea why, to be honest. But I want to see more of him.
Yeah.
This is what I mean, right? I was sort of, when I heard the news that Chelsea might be going in for a centre-back, I was thinking, maybe this is the time that they actually do go against what... But they don't look like doing that.
No.
I feel like the sporting directors, like, they should have to take a little bit of criticism when they keep doing the same thing and it's not working. They have to understand the fans' frustrations with you wanting to go out and buy a centre-back. Every single person out there knows that this team is crying out for a bit of experience, for an experienced centre-back like Mark Guéhi that's been there, that's done it. So when they go out and they want to bring in Jeremy Jacquet, with no offence to Jeremy, who's had, 38, 40 games for...
Chelsea's issue
I don't understand.
Chelsea's issue is not that they don't have enough potential.
Yeah.
And enough talent in some areas. Chelsea's issue is they don't have consistency. And consistency doesn't tend to come from young players because they need guidance and they need experience. We don't talk about that from an age perspective because you can have young, experienced players that are 23 years old. But you talk about that just know-how of playing a lot of games at the top level, and then you tend to figure out, a lot of the football that you need to understand to build up that consistency across 38 games.
Yeah.
And the directors are not interested in what the fans think. The directors are interested in what the ownership think. And the ownership want to continue to keep bringing young players in that have a market value that they can build a gap between buying point and selling point. Now, this is a higher buying point. Gittins was a higher buying point. I don't think you're always going to get that massive differential between buy and selling point, especially if you're not going to give them loads of minutes and they're not going to develop incredibly quickly. But we know that this team doesn't need another young, inexperienced player to come into an already shaky back line and manage it and marshal it. That is a lot of pressure to put on him, on his shoulders, to say to come in here. It's not like we have a Thiago Silva or someone, you're coming alongside that. You're coming alongside Fofana, inconsistent, injury-prone. Chalobah, Tosin, Badiashile. This is not an environment to bring him into.
The brief must be from upstairs. I mean, Winstanley and Stewart, certainly in social media, certain fans have got a huge amount of criticism. But my instincts are that they've been told that this is the profile of player we want to sign. Go and get the best 19, 20-year-old players that you can find in this position. There must be.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. That is the policy. That's the policy.
It has to be, but...
It's not how you build a team.
It's not how you build a team. And there has to come a point. It's almost like they don't want to admit that they might have got it wrong, so they're just going to keep doing it and hope that they get it right. But to me, it's so simple what they need to go and do. And why won't they just maybe put their hands up and go, OK...
It's extremism.
We've bought a lot of young players. We've bought the potential. We've got a lot of that, like you say, Matisse, in that squad.
Well, they are hell-bent now. So I don't think we'll see that. I think what we're going to see is young players on long contracts on lower wages. Simon Jordan did a great description a couple of months ago about the reasons why. I'm not intelligent enough to tell you, but the value of that contract remains strong because there's so many years on it.
Yeah.
So the residual value is still very much there. But I'm going to go back to what I said before. These players, they're going to stay young forever. They will mature, they will get older, they will learn.
And they'll be sold.
And, well, we don't know. That's the big million-dollar question. We don't know yet.
You mentioned extremism.
It is extremism because young players develop in environments where they can learn from other people, in particular players. You hear it all the time in interviews.
Well, John Terry was alongside Marcel Desailly and
exactly.
Frank Leboeuf to look up to as well. So.
And when you're developing alongside top players like that, it accelerates your development. You learn a lot that you can't learn from a manager who's not playing week in, week out. That communication is key on the football pitch. All of those little intangibles that are not being taken into account when you're signing young player after young player, inexperienced player after inexperienced player, and then they're looking and they haven't got any guidance and any leadership around them to actually coach them in-game. That is the big trick that they're missing from a development standpoint. And they're looking at it thinking, oh, but, other clubs do it. Yeah, but when Lewis Dunk is playing next to that young centre-back at Brighton, that's different. That's not the same as what we're doing here. And I just feel like we would actually be able to make this model a lot more appetising. It would actually work a lot better if they had a lot more balance in their recruitment and they said, right, we're going to actually sign 3 players that are not here for profit margins. They're not here for development reasons. They're here to actually guide the young players we're signing and create some sort of consistency, not only on the football pitch, but also in the training methods, in the standards, and just in terms of the quality that you're going up against. If you're training against a top player, you're going to be a lot better after a year than you are if you're playing against a player that's not.
We missed that Thiago Silva.
I don't understand.
I mean, he went to Porto, got a clean sheet. They won 1-0 on his first game, and I was just thinking, there's no way he couldn't do a job. Genuinely, there's no way that Thiago Silva couldn't do a job here. Ideally, when we say Mark Gay is probably the obvious one, but who else out there, if you could pick someone that would be that player, realistically? Mark Gay was him, wasn't he? Really,
I quite like Murillo at Forest. I don't, you know, he's a real leader. He's someone that leads by example.
Yeah.
Milenkovic were pretty good last season, I seem to remember, but I don't think we're going to do that. I just don't think that fits the model. I genuinely don't, and I think it will be hard actually to attract that level of player because the wages that they would demand
on their last contract
would not fit into this model that we're seeing at the moment.
That's the other issue is the wages are capped at what, maybe 150k. So someone like maybe Schlotterbeck at Dortmund, who's 27 years old, just about to enter his prime, having a good season, he's going to command the high end of the wage structure, and that's where the problem lies. Is Chelsea, not only do they want to spread the wages out over 7-8 years, they also want to start at a base of maybe 50k, 60k. Because it's cheaper. You know, you look at the wages of a Jacket versus the wages out of Mark Gurhey. Mark Gurhey's wages probably account for about 80 million over 5 years. Jacket's wages will count for maybe 55 million over 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. If you spread it out on top of the transfer fee, it will balance itself out. And then the market value for Mark Gurhey won't be as high as Jacket's in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
It's all business.
Yeah, this is the thing. And obviously players are on long contracts. It's not just the players, because the manager's on a long contract as well. And do you see Liam Rosenior being here long term, say longer than the other 4 managers have lasted under this ownership?
Very few managers see out their contract. There ain't many that do what Glasner's doing, by the way. No. Very, very few. And we're looking at Arne Slot now, right? Won the Premier League last season. There are some serious question marks about his future. We just seen Alonso go to Real Madrid. Not many managers see out their contract. It's very rare that you get an Arteta-type situation, a Pep Guardiola-type situation.
Yeah.
They're the only 2 I can think of off the top of my head.
Do you feel like because... Obviously, we know the reasons that Poch left, or we know some of the reasons, and similar with Maresca, it was released. I know we might hear Maresca's side of the story one day. Yeah. But obviously, Tuchel had issues with the hierarchy as well, didn't necessarily get on. If Liam does get on with the hierarchy and backs the decisions that they've made, maybe this is the managerial appointment that we could see lasting longer than all the rest?
I think...
does it depend on results, does it?
It does, because the Chelsea fan base will react to the results.
But the pressure... Does that matter?
Because the pressure... He's in that stadium, on that touchline with the Chelsea fans, week in, week out at Stamford Bridge. And then the expectations versus what he can produce with the tools that he's given, he will be the middleman and the face of it. The directors are not doing press conferences. The ownership are not doing interviews. He is the face of the model and the structure. If the model is working because Chelsea are signing a higher quality of player, which is making his job easier to do because he's got leaders around him that he can depend on to get results, his job will be a lot easier. If he continues to be given young players that he needs to develop, needs to be managing their minutes whilst managing injury-prone players, whilst trying to get results, it's a lot to juggle. Maresca struggled with that towards the end. And then what will happen is there will be a conflict for him where he will be trying to appease the Chelsea fans, but he won't be able to do that at the same time whilst trying to appease the owners, because he'll have demands for certain level of signings that he can't attain. And that is where the head loss starts and the interviews start to get a bit crazy, and the questions will be strong. And then how he deals with that period where Chelsea lose maybe next December 3 out of 4, that is how he manages that, and how he talks then will be how he stays in the job or not.
If he doesn't get Champions League football, does it matter?
To his future...
They said it's critical in the report.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'll get sacked for it, if that's the question you're asking. It depends when we finish, of course. If we finish 9th or 10th.
If we finish 6th and
don't win a trophy. 6th is Europa League, right?
Yeah. Europa League and no trophy.
I think that will have to suffice, disappointingly. I don't think that's going to lead to him losing his job. But the brief will be next season, get back into the Champions League. And that is absolutely a paramount. Look, I think we're more than capable of doing it. it's not been great. I've just seen Aston Villa lose. I've seen Newcastle go to Wolves. And you know, there's so much football still to play. We need to string some results together. We need back to back to back. That's what we need to start doing.
Because if you do, Jace, you can create a big gap to the teams below you.
It's so tight, that league. You can lose 2 games and you can drop yourself right down, just above half time. Halfway. You can win 2 and you can be knocking on third store. That's how tight it is. We've got Palace away next league game, right? Absolutely. What a perfect time to play. Have to go there and win 3 points. And all of a sudden, we beat Paphos and. We beat Crystal Palace. All of a sudden, you're talking about a very different looking outlook for what's been the start to Rosenior's career.
Yeah, Paphos is the game up next. David Luiz is returning, which I think is actually really exciting, and I think it's really nice.
Yes,
Nice little story. What a legend, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolute legend.
He was a fan's favourite.
He was.
There were many moments I can look back over his career. Of course, Munich in 12 was probably the highlight of all of that. But a big fans' favourite.
When I'm looking at these games, so obviously we've got Paphos coming up, then Palace away, then Napoli away. Which I think Napoli is so up and down under Conte. You just never quite know what you're going to get, but that's a really tough old game to go to. Then West Ham at home, Arsenal away in the League Cup, then Wolves away, then Leeds at home.
I mean, they're winnable games, a lot of those league games.
They are. I'm looking at, especially at those 2 home games, West Ham and Leeds. Have to win those, both of them.
Absolutely.
It's not the worst looking. It's not the worst looking set of fixtures for
the toughest games. Napoli away, Arsenal
away.
Right there, you don't have to be a Chelsea fan to know that. But if we can navigate our way through up to those 2 games, picking up. Got to beat Paphos, have to beat Crystal Palace. All of a sudden, the field will be very different, Be very, very different.
Absolutely, because, football's all about emotion. If Chelsea can go on a run, a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about today kind of gets put under the carpet. But it gets brushed back up again if we don't kick on, and that's the issue. But I think for Chelsea, that Premier League run, they need to be looking at minimum 10 points out of the next 12, because the fixtures after that are difficult. but then again, sometimes we do better in the difficult fixtures than the easier fixtures.
I actually go into games. I mean, obviously, it's different under Liam, isn't it? Obviously, under Maresca, it was very much big games. Chelsea were better in and just seemed to up their game for the big games, and it was the little ones that caused us the issues. Obviously, we're still yet to see that because, he's had 1 Premier League game. And, this week it's another Champions League game. So it's 4 games, like we said, in 4 different competitions to start it. You can't really gauge too much. No. But when I look at those, I think you're right. I actually look at them and think we should win them all. But
yeah, of course we should.
But will we? Probably not.
That's not how football, it's not how Chelsea works. Of course, we haven't even mentioned going back to Hull. Of course.
Oh, yes,
the FA
Cup.
It was a Friday night game that's been moved to now.
Yeah, that's Friday.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Friday the 13th.
That's
oh,
right.
God. Oh, God. Friday the 13th.
Valentine's Day after.
Yeah, Valentine's. It's going to be, I don't know if that's going to be, we're going to hate that or we're going to love it. How do you see us then, Jace? Obviously, Matisse saying 10 out of 12. Is that what you think, or that's what minimum expected?
I need, and I think we need 12 out of 12.
Wait, sorry. Which games excluding Napoli and...
Yeah, this is
just
league.
Premier League, right?
Like, I think...
Palace, West Ham, Wolves and Leeds.
And why can't we win all 4 of them?
Exactly,
Honestly, I genuinely feel that there's no reason why we cannot win all of those.
But on paper, it always looks easier than it actually ends up being with that low block. And then, you know what I mean? They're fighting for their lives, relegation battle. So, for me, bare minimum is 10. But really, 12 is what we should be aiming for because we're Chelsea. And
it would do us a massive favour if we could just finish in the top 8 of the Champions League and sack off that playoff round.
Extra
but we'd have to win both games, wouldn't we? As a minimum.
It does feel that way. Yeah, it's there's a bit of traffic between us and getting in there. So it could go down to Napoli. Could go all the way down to Napoli.
Yeah, I think it will. 16 points I think you needed last year to qualify, and we're on 10.
Yeah.
2 games left. And
before we go, then, quick shout-out to Mamadou Sarr, like you mentioned, obviously winning AFCON. Nicholas Jackson as well, who's technically still a Chelsea player. And Edouard Mendy.
Yes, Mendy.
We did speak about the little Panenka. It does like a little Panenka save.
Yes.
Remember Sergio Aguero at the Etihad?
Yeah.
Picked it up. We ended up winning that game, didn't we?
We did.
We did 2-1. Was it 2-1?
Marcus Alonso scored.
Yeah. Marcus Alonso always scored in the big games.
Yeah, I believe so.
But yeah, big shout out to them. I mean, it was the most chaotic final I think you could ever see.
Yeah.
Those players, and do you know what we should have done? We should have done what Pap Chow, the Senegal manager, did in Barcelona 2009. Take them off the pitch.
Take them off
the pitch. Refuse to come back on. To be fair, they came back on, and then one after that. It's a bit like
yes, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But good for those three players.
Yeah, good for them. Always pick up silverware and to win with your country is a very special achievement. So, Sar's young, so to gain that experience is priceless. And Jackson, maybe that brings his market value up because I don't think he'll be playing for Chelsea next season. But,
No.
he's a good player. I think he just needs to fix the finishing and he'll have a strong career as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, that is it for another episode of Inside Chelsea. We'll be back next Monday. Thank you very much for your company. And, of course, thank you to these two, Jason and Liam Rosenior. No, Jason and Matisse. We will see you next week. Up the Chelsea.
Up the Chelsea.
Up the Chelsea.